Greetings and welcome to a video discussing Phantasy Star Online 2NGS's. So, over the last 2 weeks, I released 2 parts of a video that went over everything about the Force and left out all of my bias and opinions and only talked about the facts. So, kind of to reward myself because I wanted to get all this stuff out. Anyway, now we're going to talk about everything that is good about the Force and everything that's not so much.
I beg your pardon?
So before I get into this, this is all my opinion, so please understand that as you listen into this. Right, so as you can see, I have everything kind of laid out here. I've got Rod. I don't even think you can see my mouse. We've got Rod here, we've got Talus. We've got the 12 techniques, the 3 compound techniques, and the 6 mechanics. And we've got 3 tiers here. I didn't want to use the S80, A, B, C, so on and so forth. I don't really think S is a tier that should be like it should start at the beginning of the alphabet. That's just me though. But anyway, I just decided to create my own tiers and not worry about anything official like that. This is just an opinion video anyway. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing we need to talk about is the rod. Let me see here. I'm doing all of this on MS Paint, so I might not cut everything perfectly as I'm moving it. So yeah, I think rod is in the great tier. It's the perfect weapon for a Force, especially for a new player. It's simple and easy to use. You have your normal attack, which is an elemental bullet, which lets you attack at long ranges to recover your photon points. It has a great weapon action. It gives you a counter that's basically guaranteed. It doesn't have a cooldown or anything. It's similar to other good counters that other classes have, and I'm really glad about that. It's not something you can spam. If you whiff a parry and try to immediately parry again, there's the window you can get hit in, so it's not perfect, but I think that speaks to its benefit. You need to actually get good at it, which is a positive thing, I think. But yeah, all in all, hold on a second, I gotta talk about the Photon Blast first, because I forgot to even show the Talus's Photon Blast in last week's video, but I'll cover that in a second. But yeah, the photon blast of the rod is good too. It's this beam you shoot out from your rod that has tracking. So there's a very small chance you'll actually miss with this, and you can mistime it, right? There's a chance you'll the weak point you're hitting with it closing up halfway through the blast. I've had that happen to me quite a bit. But overall, I think it's a great photon blast for a great weapon. So rod goes in a great. Talus. Originally, I was going to put this in only okay, just on the merit that people who actually use this weapon, I've heard it doesn't really have very good damage. But we went over this quite a bit last week. Not yesterday. Yesterday wasn't my hunting a raid city, an end city in the end in Minecraft. Last week, we covered out the Talus a little bit. It has 2 photon arts, and the photon arts kind of change how your techniques work. The photon blast it has, I didn't actually show this, but at first you summon cards, and then these 3 cards they lift up, go over to an enemy, and then kind of raise down and create this vertical pillar of lights that deals damage. The only problem with it is once it's decided where it's going to hit, if you're for example, when I saw this myself, I was fighting a Noglith and I used the PA and the cards shut up, and by the time they started falling back down to create this pillar of light, the Noglith had already jumped out of the way, so I didn't actually deal any damage with it. But yeah, there are some bosses where that isn't an issue, like Frostal, like Dark Falls. It's not a bad PA. It's not as reliable as the Rod's PA. I don't know if I would recommend the Talus to a new player because it is kind of complex. It takes quite a bit to kind of learn and figure out. but it's not a bad weapon, and because of that, I'm not going to put this weapon in okay. I am instead going to put this weapon in good. I think it deserves that. So now that we've taken care of the weapons, we have the 12 techniques to go over. So first off, we have Foe. Foe is very simple. You cast it uncharged. You kind of throws a ball of fire that explodes to a cyclone, hits your enemies. Kind of, it's not really anything special. You charge it, and it's almost like Foe, where it instantly teleports towards your enemy and then explodes into like this giant like flash of fire. So I'm gonna put Foe at good. It could be better, but it's not bad by any means. So I think good is fair. Then next we have Gifoe. Now Gifoe has much longer charge time than Foe, and that is something that Foe's benefited. It charges very quickly. But as far as Gifoe, honestly, I think just from a visual standpoint, Gifoe is a lot cooler. You cast it uncharged, it's this cyclone around you, and then you charge it and you get this really tall, like, again, vertical pillar with like fire spiraling around it. That hits like 3 times. I'm not really a fan of multi-hit spells just because I feel like you're not really seeing the bulk of their damage in one go, which is what I like to see. But I'm gonna put Gifoe a great. It's kind of slow to charge, which is a bit of a trouble, but like visually it's pretty good. I'm pretty sure it gives more potency than Foe anyway. Although I'm not entirely too versed into all of the potency increases that each of the individual techniques give. So next we have Barda and Gibarda. And yeah, I'm gonna rank these two the same. Let me just grab them real quick. So let me explain myself. You cast Barda, and it's a straight line of ice. You charge it, and you cast it, and it's a straight line of ice, but bigger. Same thing for Gibarda, right? You cast it, it's this cone of cold. You charge it and cast it, it's a cone of cold, but bigger. Like, the fact that what charging it doesn't change the way it looks docks at huge points for me. It's good damage, but like I'm gonna go ahead and say none of these are bad. There's not like a bad category, but okay is like the worst category out of the 3, and I think by themselves without their mechanic, okay is where Barda and Gibarda fall. So next we have Zond, and I think most of you, especially those that play, if I have any Force users in my among my viewers, see where this is going right away. Zond is the best spell in the game for mobbing. You cast it. There's this thunderbolt that comes down, and then and then once it hits a target, chain lightning comes out and hits all nearby targets. This is the PSE burst clearing technique for me. I've seen some people say Zan does wonders with it, but like for me, it's Zond. Zond is up just the tip of the top. It doesn't change much when you cast it. It does change some, but it doesn't change a whole lot. But the pure meat grinding power of its chain lightning effect, it deserves this great a spot among the greats. So that's what it gets. So Gizon is next, and honestly, I think I can safely give it a ranking of. And I messed up. Hang on. Yeah. This might take me a second. I'm obviously going to edit me having problems grabbing this out, but don't worry about it. Okay, there we go. I think this belongs in good. So you cast it uncharged, and it creates this turret, kind of like Talus's weapon action, where it just kind of zaps his enemies as you go, which isn't a bad thing to have with you when you're in a PSE burst zoning things like crazy. Like his extra ticks of lightning damage, it's not bad. You charge it, and it kind of tries to be PSO1 Razond. It's like this group of lightning above you that kind of goes out in all directions. I don't really think it's as easy to hit as PSO1's Razond, but we're not talking about PSO1. I'm not gonna be taking seriously with other games' names in my mouth. As it is by itself, NNGS, it's honestly okay, but I think like its uncharged form is enough to elevate it up to good status. So that's where I'm going to put it. And anybody who's seen my previous attempts at making Force guides is going to know where this is headed. These two are headed right and okay. I'm sorry. I know there are some people out there that like the win techniques, but well, you know what? Actually, hang on a second. Hang on a second here. I think it's fair to give. I'm gonna bump Zan up to good just because of its charged state, the giant wind blade, which I wish had more tracking, but because you can mess with it, it's good. But Gizon kind of has the same problem as Barda and Gibarda do. You charge it, and it's basically the same thing as its uncharged state, just a little bit more. Yeah, it's not really for me. Zon by itself, it's kind of good in both states, but I don't really much care for it personally. Okay, so next we're going to have the Grants spells. And Grants kind of has the same problems as all the other spells in OK. It's just the same thing but more. So we're just going to throw that right here. It gets a spot slightly above Gizan just because of my bias. But yeah, it's really not anything special. It does charge really fast. It does have that to it. But yeah, not really a fan. So Gizon's next, and for its utility alone, it should probably be in good. But I kind of like the way it looks, so it's going in great. You cast it uncharged, it kind of creates this beam of light on the other side of you that kind of twirls around almost like a cyclone. It's a decent mobbing tool, as Gafoi is. And then you charge it, and it's a bunch of beams of light. Which I kind of wish it was just a single beam of light like in PSO2, but we're not talking about other games. By itself, it's good for mobbing uncharged, but the way it looks, it bumps up to great. So there you go. And yeah, unfortunately, Medjit's kind of in the same boat as Grants. Without its mechanic, if you charge it, it's just the same thing but a bit bigger. Medjit, however, if you charge it, it changes its form. You cast it by itself, it's just this ball of light, but it appears at the enemy and kind of engulfs them, and then you charge it, and it's this column of darkness. I keep saying that it's darkness. It is not light. It is darkness. Maybe it's because darkness isn't my aesthetic that I keep saying it's light, but it's not. I need to get that straight in my head. I'm yelling at myself here. Magic belongs in good. Just because it doesn't get great just because darkness isn't my aesthetic, but yeah. The way it changes if you charge it is enough to elevate it up to good status. So that's all of the spells taken care of, and that's the top rate Grokale taken care of. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the excess here. So now we're going to talk about the 3 compound techniques. That compound, that's the word I keep forgetting. Okay, so yeah, compound techniques. Foam Megalodon's first. And unfortunately, I have to say it's the least favorite. Not only because it has darkness in it, and darkness is my aesthetic. You are sat still while you're gathering the photons to cast this sword that you swing out And there is a shockwave there to kind of hit enemies at a distance, so it's not purely a close ranged move. But yeah, I really don't think it's the kind of thing of a spellcaster should be using, like this magic sword. But it's not like the damage is pretty good, which is to its merit. But like the fact that it's the fact that you're held in place that I don't like while you're charging it up. So that's why he goes in only okay. So what was it? Barancion is next. And I messed that up. Hang on a second. That's getting edited out. Oh, come on. Come on now. Work with me here. Okay, there we go. Yeah, Barancion's going in great. This is my favorite one. You charge up a nuke. When you charge up a spawn, yeah, you are kind of set still. But it's this like big orb of ice and light spikes that you throw at an enemy, and it kind of twirls around for a bit before exploding. It's a nuke, plain and simple, and that's why it goes after the PSO1 Refo in my heart of the greatest of the three. But yeah, we're not talking about PSO1. That was just like a small reference. But yeah, it goes great. This is honestly everything a force technique should be, in my opinion. So next is Zanleon. This one's good. At first, I was kind of against the fact that it brings you up to the enemy's face, but recently I've kind of come to the fact that as a rod using force, you need to be up close, countering attacks, because that actually increases. If you do that a lot, it actually increases your DPS. So the fact, if you've seen me fighting by Bujin way back before Tim came out, you know I like to keep my distance as a force, but with Rod's parry, you should really be up front countering and getting those elemental bullets in for extra damage. So that bumps up Zanleon's, it is Zanleon's, I think. Either that or Zandion. Yeah, it's probably Zandion. I'm not good at remembering names. Sorry. But yeah, this gets good for me. So next up, we're going to talk about the mechanics of the techniques, which is what's left. So first off, we have Folibrand. And I might need to bring in GS up to remember all the names of these. The fire techniques. Goes in the trash. This is the one thing that I would put in a bad category if I wanted to put it there, but I don't want to be negative for this video. Voidbrand creates like a triangle of fire after an indeterminate amount of hits, and the indeterminate thing knocks it points. But what happens if you cast a fire technique on it once it has that brand on there? It pops 200 damage, and that's the best case scenario. The damage on this thing is sad, and I'm sure if you use it at low levels, it's even lower. I actually don't know. I don't have any low level forces. But yeah, I'm really glad Foey got a technique, because it hadn't had one for a year, and I did want it to have one, but the one we got is not good. I'm sorry, I have to be the guy that has to say that out loud. I'm gonna give it okay, because at least we have something for fire, and that's all I'm gonna say. And that's where I'm gonna stop talking about that. So, Bardablot is next. Let me grab it. The polar opposite of fire in every way, Bardablot is the best mechanic. And I'm probably going to be... This is probably something of a hot take. People might disagree with me on it. I like the fact that you have to work for the end result. You have to cast Uncharged Barda spell 7 times for this thing to fully develop. And then you cast a Charged Barda or Gi Barda, because it works with both spells. And then it explodes and deals good damage. And I know I've heard people complain that it takes so long to get that effect out, and that Barancion is good because it gives you that effect right away. but I like the fact that you have to work for it, and it gets bonus points for actually showing you the progress as you build it up. So next is Zon's tech mechanic, and I'm not calling them by name anymore because I don't remember the names. Sorry. So Zon's technique gets good. Honestly, I'm not a fan of Zan's, or Grance's mechanics. They're kind of passive. You get this, after an indeterminate number of hits, you get this kind of aura of electricity after you, and it strengthens one charge technique, and then it goes away. And then, if you use Zond as a PSE killer, you have this pop up immediately because all the chain lightnings count as hits for this mechanic, and it's not a big deal. It's really not, but the fact that it doesn't really, especially like in a PSE, it doesn't really, you have to work for it, and the pull off, it kind of feels minor because it's so easy to get. And like, really, it's no different from the pull off from Bardablot. It's like one hit extra damage with like the breaking of the seal that you build up. But yeah, like, it's not bad. It's decent. You know, at least it's not just one hit. And on that note, we're talking about the win mechanic. And hang on a second, I have to do something before that. Hang on. I'm not really organizing these in order of like what's the best in OK and what's the worst in OK, but Full Weight Brand really needs to be at the bottom of OK. It really does. There we go. So yeah, after one hit on an enemy, you get the win mechanic seal on it, and then you cast a charge technique, and it deals an extra attacks. Charged Gizon's 2 hits become 4 hits, and charged Zon's giant wind fan creates this bunch of small wind fans around it, slicing the enemy up. It's not bad by any means, but the complete lack of work needed to pull it off docks at huge points, more so than Zon's tech mechanic. So yeah, it's an only OK. It's not as bad as Void Branding because the damage isn't bad. But yeah, no work. It's just uncharge, charge, uncharge, charge, and just spam it repeatedly. Which is nice that you can spam it, but the complete lack of work, again, not feeling it. So next is Grance's mechanic. Good, grabbed it in one. This gets a good for me. It's basically the exact same thing as Zond, but instead of like strengthening a single attack, you know what? Actually, yeah. Hang on a second. Because Grance's mechanic deserves to be against Zond's mechanic, because it's not a one-time pop and drop. There we go. If you have Grance's tech mechanic up and this great ring of light around you, it improves upon Grants and Gi Grants. It gives you more of what those two techniques do. And as long as you keep doing light elemental damage with these two techniques, that mechanic will stay up and will stay improving them. So it does get barks above Zond, but the fact that it doesn't tell you how many the fact that it doesn't show you how many hits you need to activate it, docks it points and keeps it from great. It's still a lot better than Zond's mechanic. And as much as darkness isn't my aesthetic, Medge's mechanic is going up in great. It's not as good as Barda's because it doesn't require you to work as much. And I will say this: as much as Barter Block does require you to work, it's not really annoying. At least for me, I know some people have complained about it, but in my opinion, it's a good amount of work. It's not too much. But yeah, with Magis Mechanic, you charge 3 times, and you cast uncharged 3 times. You get those three balls of darkness behind you. You charge, and then you get like 4 balls of Magid at your enemies. And then Gi Magid is like multiple columns of light striking down, scattering almost like lightning, which is kind of a cool effect. Let's clear this out. And there you go. Everything Force, my tier list. I'm kind of glad to have worked on this. It's a little bit of a reward for myself for trying to prevent myself from putting my opinion in like the guide from the last 2 weeks. But yeah, I enjoyed talking about all of this. I enjoyed kind of showing off my tier list as we went along. If you got this point in the video, it means the world to me, as it always does. I hope you enjoyed it, and hope to see you in the next one. Farewell. Me like big damage numbers.